there's some feedback. Good evening and welcome to the Guilderland Central School District's Board of Education meeting. Today is January 13th. Can everyone please silence their cell phones and stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, and we can start with the high school student update. I don't think we have that today. How about public comments?
Yes, there's one.
Carter? Just have to read a little blurb. The Board of Education encourages public participation at its meetings and recognizes its responsibility to hear public comment. An acknowledgement of the public comment, either orally or in writing, will be provided as appropriate after the meeting. As a matter of practice, the Board of Education does not engage in dialogue during the public comment period. There will be 2 opportunities at each regular board meeting for public comments to be heard. Although the Board of Education welcomes comments about programs offered by the district and other aspects of the district's operation, the board expressly prohibits public comment that would infringe on a particular person's or student's privacy rights, would be disruptive of the board meeting, or create some safety issues. Welcome.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Carter Elwood. I am a part of the Guilderland Central School District, but I come from a place called Tech Valley High School. That's where I go to school. I'm just here on behalf of myself and anyone else from this district who currently attends there, or anyone else from this district who is wishing to attend my school or seek enrollment. I just want to say that being given the opportunity to attend the school that I go to, it's been a privilege, and it has given me a lot of opportunities and impacts on me in so many ways. During my time at Tech Valley, I've grown socially and academically, and I've done so many things. I've made connections, with classmates, even business professionals alike. And knowing what I know now, I wholeheartedly believe that students in this district should be able to have the same opportunity that I have been given right now. So I just wanted to say thanks to the board for making my opportunity possible, and I encourage the board to continue to support students that come from my school, Tech Valley.
Thank you. Okay, and then we can go to our program report. While Mr. Fincel is loading that, I'll just say thank you for your comment. My oldest daughter actually wasn't fortunate enough. She didn't get selected in the lottery. So it's always great to hear from students that have had a positive experience.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'm just going to give you a program overview of the work that we do at Guilderland High School as it relates to English language arts instruction. I'm going to do my best to try to talk about a lot of things as coherently and precisely as possible. I'm going to apologize in advance because the one thing I don't want to do is not include a lot of the work and things that have been shared with me by students and staff over the past couple weeks in trying to prepare resources, images, and stuff. And I always feel like, what am I missing? What am I leaving out? And there's a good chance I might miss something, so I apologize. All right, so just a little bit of an overview. We're going to talk about New York State requirements, standards, changes, how our students are doing at the high school, work that we're doing in the department, programming that we have, and opportunities for students, and then talking about what lies ahead, in addition to some student work samples, which I think really highlights the work that we have been, are, and will continue to do. So very basically, at the high school, all of the students need to have 4 credits worth of English for graduation. In 11th grade, they have to also take a Regents exam. We're going to be shifting from the Common Core ELA to the Next Generation Regents this June. We have the last administration is actually next week. And substantively, there's not really too much changes between the Common Core and the Next Gen. They're just sort of like merging some grade level bands, but by and large, it remains the same for the Common Core ELA. Something I just want to highlight that I think is a team asset in English, that it's cumulative. Even though that students are subjected to that graduation requirement in 11th grade for that Regents exam, it's not limited to how they only do in 11th grade. But technically speaking, it represents the total cumulative effort, kindergarten all the way up to 11th grade, because students, when they're young and they're reading a Dr. Seuss book and they're talking about what's the moral of the story, that doesn't really change. It just gets more complicated, more nuanced, and again, it's a cumulative effort for elementary, middle, and high school for student success. So just to kind of give you a little bit of an overview of things that have changed and tried to go back in time. You know, interestingly, I graduated in 1996, and I was thinking, like, what exam did I take in the day? And I don't remember. But that's when New York State had the core curriculum. 2005, they had learning standards, and this is where we have, like, the reading, writing, listening, and speaking, 4 basic standards. Common Core comes out in 2010 because the whole idea is that we need to have some degree of uniformity among schools. So, like, if a student has to move, there shouldn't be some radically different learning environment. Like, we should be relatively working towards the same kind of learning outcomes. And what they did with that time is that they sort of combined speaking and listening. They introduced language. And with the reading component, they branched off. There's a difference between reading literature and there's a difference between reading informational texts. Fast forward a little bit more to the present, you know, we have the Next Generation ELA standards. And again, it is very similar to the Common Core learning standards in there. Along the way, we've had the introduction of culturally responsive instruction. Like, we need to help have our students see themselves in the work that they learn. Some notable changes that I've noticed, right, is that with the Common Core, when the Common Core came out, and it was for English, there were standards in there for literacy in the technical areas, social studies, science, things that are non-English, because, shocker, English language arts instruction doesn't just happen in an English class, it happens in all content areas. Another thing that is something that we're trying to grapple with appropriately is what does digital literacy look like? Kids traditionally have read with books, now they can read on tablets. Kids traditionally, when we say writing, did that with pen and paper. Writing today, when a writing occurs in an English class or any class, more often than not, it's really probably not writing, but it's probably typing. The utility of handwriting has a different value today than it did back then. So again, English is very deliberate in intention, it's flexible, it's an iterative process, and it actually impacts all instructional areas. So one of the charges when we're trying to look at what does success mean, right? When we ask that for every student, success can be different for each student, but we're trying to look at how successful are we as an English department and English program. One of the available measures is the Regents exam. The problem with the Regents exam is, like, it's pretty uniform, it's consistent. However, it's a very imperfect measure because it's intended to be a graduation requirement, not necessarily, it's not always the best assessment that reflects the unique circumstances of every class. And then the other thing is in there too is that every year the state scales the score. So there's a raw score and then there's a conversion, and that may vary from year to year. An important item of distinction just to be aware of is that the Regents, we look at proficiency, which is passing, which can be 65, and for some kids it's 55. And then there's an aptitude where there's level 5, level 4, level 3. That level 5 is 85 to 100. Level 3 is 65 to 79, and level 3 is that little middle band. But I don't, and as much as we're going to talk about the regions here for the next couple minutes, I don't want to overlook, like, success tangibly looks different. It can be student participation, student expression, student-created projects, student collaboration. So I just don't want to, diminish that when we're talking about numbers and performance. So this is how we have been performing over the past 10 years. So I'm just going to highlight a couple things. So with all of the new standards, usually there's a Regents exam that is tethered to that reflects those standards. So again, 2014-15 was the last time we did the comprehensive English exam, and then the new Common Core ELA came out. And the red line reflects our proficiency, which is our pass rate. The blue line is New York State. So what you see right before COVID, there is a pretty substantial gap between how our students do in Guilderland and those in New York State. COVID comes along, there's no more Regents, we have to reset. And as one can imagine, because we had to go to remote instruction and drastically change things, there is learning losses that occur, and not just at the high school, but early on, like kindergartners not being able to come together and talk with each other. There is some degree of, we have to make up for that when things come back to normal. So if you look after COVID, when we return to business as usual with these Regents exams, you'll see that we have been pretty consistent in terms of our performance. And again, notably, our kids perform much better than kids do across New York State. And I think another thing to highlight is that if you compare the slopes, it seems that kids on average across New York State have been performing more worse compared to where our kids have been pretty consistent and stable. The decrease has not been as great as what has been experienced across New York State. Another thing to add to this too, which again, I mentioned that an issue sometimes with looking at region scores is the conversion. And something that the Regents has been, or New York State has been trying to do, and they've been doing this, is that it is more difficult for students to score higher for level 5s at mastery, right? So we're looking here at proficiency as defined by pass rate of 65. If I was to include the 55 low pass, that would be a little bit higher, okay? Oops. So another thing to think about is how we think about ourselves. Like, this is how kids do here at Guilderland, but how does Guilderland think about itself? And you have to think that Guilderland is a pretty diverse district. Urban in Westmere to rural in Altamont, suburbia in Pine Bush, and everything all in between. So we have a wide array of student need. In addition to that, our population is becoming increasingly diverse over time, right? So one of the things that I did is I wanted to see how we stacked up against comparable districts. So Guilderland's technically classified as a low need to resource capacity district. So looking at how we perform, now this looks like a lot of spaghetti, but comparable districts within Albany and Saratoga, it's Bethlehem, Guilderland, North Colony, Burnt Hills, Niskayuna, and Voorheesville. On the left-hand side is the English Regents proficiency. On the right-hand side is graduation rate. Now, you might be asking, what's the connection between these two, right? Talking about English, but we're talking about graduation. English is a required Regents exam for all our kids. Sometimes kids can get away with one social studies or one science, and they can kind of do some combination, but all kids have to get through English. So if you look on the left-hand side, this is our proficiency for all students. The middle one is students with disabilities. The bottom one is economically disadvantaged students. The question I like to ask myself, I think the measure of a society is how well it best serves its most vulnerable populations, right? And if you look at within the 6 school districts that are considered low need to resource capacity schools, we're right in the middle, right? And it's not bad. We're talking 90 for all students. Now, if you shift your attention to the right-hand side, and we look at the graduation rate. Again, for all students, we're in the middle. But if you start to now look at students with disabilities and students who are considered economically disadvantaged, we are number one of the 6 comparable school districts. And I'd also say too, like if we were to widen the lens and we look at all of the schools in Albany, Schenectady, Saratoga, we're talking Capital Region BOCES, we're talking Questar and Wishy-Boces, Guilderland ranks 2022, second, 2023, top 4th, 2024, top 7th, 2025, top 5th, and that's out of a total of 38 schools. So it's important to know that we are doing a lot of good work to support all of our students and the students who really need it the most. I take pictures every now and again, and that little Post-it note was when we were grading Regents exams last year, and it was for an ENL student, and I'm opening up and I see this little motivational Post-it from a teacher to a student, because we care, because we recognize this English exam can be a real big hurdle for a lot of kids, and we want to have them be prepared to be successful. Now, department work, things that we've done the past 10 years. Try not to read directly from this, as some of this stuff might be familiar. You know, I think part of the most important work that we've done has been our co-taught program, because we're bringing English and special education teachers together to work collaboratively. We work very deliberate on having common grade level experiences. You know, one of the more notable ones is 9th grade, where we look at doing a little bit of social studies in English for September 11th. They read a novel on the topic, they go to the New York State Museum, and that's for all students, not some classes. The department's done a really good job at constantly refreshing and updating our libraries with brand spanking new YA novels. Again, the interdisciplinary focus has been really important, in not just in English, but in social studies. A lot of the changes in social studies have been skill-based. Those skills exist in English, and they're very similar. So we work very closely together in the department to have that experience. DEI has been another important aspect of the English program. You know, when I said that it's important for kids to feel represented in the curriculum, that's where we work to make sure that we have books that students can see themselves in, their books that engages our students with hard things that are important. We work with trying to help kids have voice and to be able to facilitate, you know, I'm gonna refer to civil conversations later, but it's really important where kids have a safe space to be able to be heard, to ask questions while they're in a caring, supportive environment. Argumentation has been a huge focus in both English and social studies, and so we've done a lot of work trying to make sure that there's alignment with proper claims, evidence, and reasoning across both departments. We've done work when the Common Core came out to standardize, to prioritize certain power standards, and then to use that information to kind of articulate important aspects for each grade level. All of that, again, was super important with our co-taught classes, because when we have a range of learners, we need to be able to differentiate instruction. We've worked very closely with close reading and annotation in both departments. Right now, we've been working on trying to develop a common standards-based rubric for each of the grade levels in English and social studies. As I mentioned earlier, the arrival of AI and the prevalence of Chromebooks is changing how we're trying to help both teach English and help our students engage with reading and writing and expression. Another thing that our teachers have done a really great job through both the New York State English Council and the Capital District Writers Project is infusing art into English. Some of that's done through the professional collaboration and with external groups and both internally. And then this last thing here, I just want to highlight, because I feel like I often get this, like, where's the grammar? Or what about the semicolon or the spelling or the syntax? And I will say, like, that has its place in English language arts. It's important. But I firmly believe that the department feels that it is more important to emphasize meaning over form. Like, if a student is able to express themselves well enough, and there might be a rogue error in the syntax or a misspelled word, that can be caught in revision. But if a perfectly written sentence means nothing, then what does that get the student, right? So I don't want to diminish the value of grammar, but I wanted to put that in context with what we want our students to be able to learn in English class. So things that we have in our program. We have a lot of college credit aligned courses with AP, courses through Schenectady County Community College and Syracuse University. We have a lot of great electives. I mentioned civil conversation. We have picture books. We have acting and directing. We have a journalism course that also feeds into the Journal, which is our student newspaper. You might not see him right now, but you know Mr. Maycock is the man behind the scenes, and we have digital broadcasting news and sports, and that allows kids to be able to contribute to the GHS Reporter, present the news, also act as like in the field filmers and correspondents at all sorts of sporting events. One of the things, again, too, that we're trying to do is we're trying to offer more electives. We have 2 that came out last year. They weren't able to run because it's really hard to get our electives running, and I'll explain this in a little bit. We have 21st Century English and For the Love of Reading. So we're trying to kind of help kids connect with English in a way that's both useful and also is fulfilling. Other things that we're able to do here really well in our English program is that we work really closely with our librarians. We bring our classes down to the library. The librarians come to the classroom for research, for book talks. We're really proud to have been able to bring to the high school, and thank you to Ms. Anderson for supporting this, as we've brought in authors. How often have you read a book and asked yourself, I wonder what he meant? I wonder what she tried to convey, right? And you don't know without being able to actually ask the person who authored the text. So we've been able to bring in Brandon Keeley, Wendy Mills, Joseph Burshak, Gabe Polsner. It's an amazing opportunity that we're very grateful to have those authors come in and actually work with our students. This past fall, Wendy Mills went to the New York State Museum with students and did a workshop with students afterward with her book, All We Have Left. We also have our kids take advantage of real-life publishing. A lot of our teachers have our kids submit their work into essay contests through the New York Times, local organizations, for scholarships, and you'd be surprised at how much prizes our kids worth. I don't want to say like, oh, they're making a lot of money, but that, for a student, it might be one thing to have your parents say, hey, that sounds really good. I think this reads really well. Or your teacher, like, that's really good. But then to actually put it out into the real world and have people externally say, this is amazing. First place, $500. That is another real world way to reflect the success of our English program. Other things that we have our kids do. In our English classes, we think about focusing on helping our kids to think about the role of audience. In our English classes, we have our kids write to veterans, individuals in nursing homes, children in the hospital. It's not sort of like, hey, I hope you feel better, but like, all right, this is a young child. How would you need to change your words for them to understand and feel what you want to express? Again, the emphasis is on meaning, right? We have the Dodge Poetry Festival, which we try to select some kids based on their love of poetry and their aptitude from year to year to go down state to participate in that really excellent event. We have a lot of similar clubs. So again, I mentioned civil conversation. The course actually came from the club, but we still have that club. We have a Shakespeare club. We also have, like I said, the Journal, which runs the school newspaper. So things to think of in the future, right? So there's going to be some changes coming up potentially to, graduation requirements for our students, and we want to be on the front end. We don't want to kind of be notified the day before we have to go live, like we got to do this. We're trying to think ahead. We're trying to be flexible. We're trying to build capacity. Again, digital technology is a really hard thing because we as educators are trying to learn how to use that to advance our own instruction. We're also trying to help our kids use it to advance their own learning. And there's this fine line between, you know, if you're going to write something, you're going to put a resume, cover letter together, I would expect a student to take advantage of Grammarly. I would expect a student to take advantage of AI because it's putting polish. So we're trying to help students to understand when to and when not to use these tools. So when it's for learning, we want their raw, naked work so we can provide feedback. But at the same time, we don't want to keep the technology at arm's length because it will be used. They should be using it at some point in the future. I mentioned all of our electives and programming. It is very difficult to provide a lot of different electives because when you have many different electives, each of them are likely to be singletons, and that makes them vulnerable to being collapsed because there's not enough students. So one of the things that is important to know that there is a minor cost to having a wide variety of electives to provide a little bit of something for everyone. We are working to the best that we can to try to have English not just be in English, but everywhere. Like, we recognize if you're in science and you're doing research there, well, the writing and thinking and the presentation skills are going to be there. It's there in social studies. So where we can try to build outward, out of English to help students everywhere, that is a long-range goal. Student stamina is huge. Students struggle to spend enough time reading and writing. I think a little bit of it is like COVID, a little bit of it is the technology and social media where everyone just wants instant gratification. And it's a time-intensive task. We try to spend a lot of time in the classroom to help them. We also hope that kids do that at home, but we recognize that that's not a guarantee. And I think too, at the end of this, it's not just about skill building, but it's also, English is something fulfilling. And I'm gonna show you this at the end, that at the end of the day, like, a kid wants to pick up a book because they choose to. They want to sit down and put their thoughts on a piece of paper because it's helpful for them, or they want to say something to someone else, and that's the medium that they choose to do, not because they're compelled to do so. So what is English and what does learning look like, right? Again, English isn't just about, if you close your eyes, you probably think, again, a book, an essay, spelling, and punctuation. So I'm sharing with you some photos that come from Mr. Missoura in 10th grade English, and I'll kind of briefly touch upon it. He runs a public speaking class. It's a college credit course, and what he had kids do was to speak about things that they love, to inspire. So they would speak on it, and then they would participate. The goal is to build community, but at the same time build confidence in that communication. Another thing that he was involved in, again, I mentioned art, so infusing that art into English. Again, student work. I said that, we do a lot of interdisciplinary work. We have an aligned program, and then we have the normal amount of interdisciplinary emphasis that we have in all of our English and social studies classes. And so I was just kind of culling through work from last year, and again, I think this is a great example of the value of meaning over form. Is there some punctuation errors? Is there some syntax errors? Yes, but it's unfair. The 14th Amendment is broken. The color of skin, but what does it matter? Black or white? Why does the education change when the pigment is darker? What difference can it make? What can education give to kids? A little darker than another. Why must the education be different? Because of exterior features. In the end, we're all human inside, right? So again, I think you can clearly see the meaning is there. The processing is there. And I'll close with just a couple other student work samples here. One thing that I did not touch upon that is really important affecting our kids is social emotional learning. Like, kids are grappling with a lot of mental health issues. And so another thing that is so useful for English is processing, reflection, and expression. Just at the bottom here, like this is, again, an 11th grade class, they do this thing, I believe. I believe growth comes from what you do when nothing is guaranteed. I believe that kindness is the most powerful force in the universe. I believe you should know your friends as well as you know yourself, if not more. I believe not everything makes sense right away. I believe new experiences are the most important times of life. So these, I think, are very powerful learning experiences. And again, I highlight, we do work on spelling, we do work on capitalization, the use of the apostrophe and comma, but we put our emphasis on being able to look at text, whether on paper, on a screen, and understand the meaning there. We put the emphasis on creation of meaning, whether written, typed, spoken, or even acted out. One more. So this is me being silly. It's so important to stop and smell the roses. In my craziness to want to try to capture all of these wonderful things in the department, I consider myself to be pretty aware and present. And as I was going around getting pictures, can I take a picture of your classroom? I came across this cork bulletin board right outside of a teacher's classroom. And I just stopped and I started reading these little pieces of poetry. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this has been there for months and I haven't noticed it. So I spoke to the student today. Her name is Erin Tynan, and she says, today I feel like a grassy field. Sometimes I am freshly cut, ready for a game. Sometimes I'm overgrown, feeling like hay. But always I am capable of being played on. I ask the world, does the shade of green really matter? And the answer is no. I am always a grassy field. So to me, I know that represents who that student is, but I also feel what she's expressing also represents what Guilderland is. Does anyone have any questions?
A shining star in Guilderland, so thank you so much for that. I loved your graphs on particularly referencing the more vulnerable students. That was amazing. I just had a kind of a general question. Last year, I'm sure you probably read that, I think it was in The Atlantic, that college students aren't having as much ability as they did, a decade ago to read books in great volume because they're more used to reading snippets in primary education. What are your thoughts on that, and how can we build stamina while also emphasizing reading the entire text?
Well, I think my teachers would concur with that sentiment. I can say that over time, sometimes there's the class book, the class novel, but when you're trying to adapt and meet students where there are, you are accurate. Like, they are looking for shorter segments, smaller pieces, short stories. And that is to capitalize on their endurance and stamina. I think what can be done is to just provide the time to practice, provide the time to hopefully expose students to a wide array of texts so that they find something that they really enjoy. I was at the middle school earlier today doing an honors performance test thing. A student was done, and when they're done, they're just kind of waiting down the clock. And this girl had a book thicker than an encyclopedia. And that, awesome. I think the best thing to do is encourage any kind of reading. It could be a comic book. It could be a news article. It could be a popular mechanics magazine. It could be classical stuff. It could be a YA. It could be all different genres. I'd even say reading blog posts online, because that requires the eyes to go over the words and sentences and to process that. So I think where we can kind of hook student attention authentically, that is the best chance to help them carry on. Because again, at the end of the day, when students are engaging people in the real world, we hope that they are thinking critically. They're thinking about audience. They're thinking about perspective. They're thinking about, what is the evidence and reasoning that is presented towards me and what I'm processing, without giving them the direction of hey, what is the purpose of this paper? We hope that those things can be developed so that they become an automatic thing when they leave here. And if not, learning's a lifelong process.
Yeah, I concur. It's a fabulous presentation and incredible faculty. I see that the AI for digital technology piece that you have listed as looking ahead. And I'm curious as to what extent the department has had to address that, both from an education standpoint, but also from a realization that how do we make it not problematic and be realistic about it, and also not let it become a crutch that a lot of our students are grabbing towards, because that definitely seems to be the direction. Like I said, I think it's good that it's being embraced because it's real, or not. If it's AI, it's the opposite of real. It's a reality, better choice, and that how do we help our students to use it effectively and acknowledge the fact that it's there.
Sure. So I'll just use a math comparison. There's a graphing calculator, but the graphing calculator does not have value insofar as the students do not understand the equations that it's helping them to quickly speed and process through. The graphing calculator does not help the student if the student is not capable of checking the graphing calculator's output. So I say the comparable thing is that things like as simple as a spell check, the squiggly blue and red lines that are in Google Docs, that is assistive stuff. And it's not wrong for kids to use it, but then at its maximum, we're talking about ChatGPT. Can you provide me a well-reasoned essay on X? So there's two things. Well, we can't deal with this, we're gonna go back to pen and paper. And that relieves us of that problem, but that's irresponsible. Because the way the future is gonna be is like kids have to be able to adequately engage in that medium. At the same token, you can't go full bore into just the digital medium because there's some tactile learning has value, and what we're able to do is that when we have some on-demand written things, we also have a baseline to compare. I think the most important thing, and I'm glad you bring this up because I kind of forgot to expand on this, is that plagiarism is a real problem right now. And the best traditional ways is that when teachers know their students and they know their voice, their quirks, their styles, what they typically express, and when something deviates that out of the norm, that's usually like, hey, well, wait a minute, like that, you don't normally speak like that, you don't normally write like that, and that opens up the conversation to look into it further. I think the challenging thing with AI is that our teachers are struggling to catch students because we need really effective, efficient tools to assist with that process. So I can tell you one of the things that we've been doing in the department. It's become department policy that all digital work is done in a Google document because it allows us to review a revision history. It protects student work. So it shows like, hey, this is my work. You can see it kind of like in a nice little overtime. This is all of the stuff that has been created. It also allows us to see what we call like the big copy paste, like 5 pages done in a span of 30 seconds or block cut and paste. That allows us, it's not always a guarantee because sometimes this has happened, like, oh, a student does not have their Chromebook, but they want to work on it. So they're working on it on their phone, right? What students are getting more adept at doing is copying directly from another screen. So I'm not saying the cut and paste, but they're transcribing. So on one device, they'll put in a prompt, ask ChatGPT a question, it'll spit out, and then they are transcribing it. So then when you look at the revision history, it flows normally. So our teachers are using AI detection tools that we have that's available, and they're not always 100% accurate. They give you probabilities, likely created by AI. But I think that combined with how well we know students is our best effort to try to intervene in the moment. I have a teacher who went the extra step because this student is really, really adept. Reached out to our technology crew. Hey, student made this paper at this time. The revision history shows that they are typing it out. AI detector shows that it's likely created by AI. Can you take a look at the searches? And They look at the search, how to ask AI a question. So like we're trying to deter, we're trying to intervene, we're trying to make this a teachable moment. But as you can imagine, trying to do that for every student is very time intensive. So long-winded way, the AI has a use to help facilitate instruction. AI has a use to facilitate learning. And AI has a place beyond learning as an enhancement. And we're trying to get kids to understand that for learning, this has got to be you, but in the real world, it's an enhancement that you should feel free to use and to empower their own learning.
And I just want to say one more point. As a parent, the educators that my children have had have motivated them. And I feel like that's a key piece here that I've seen, that like some of the stuff you're showing is that they've found a way to tap into the interest that the kids have to make them more inclined to have it genuine. Because so much of this go-to easy solution, is removed when they feel that connection. So to the credit of your teachers, I feel like they do a good job with that too.
I kind of want to add on to that. My question is really centered on when you have those conversations with students and frame it from this standpoint of these are skills you need to build in order to be able to use this tool effectively. Are they responsive and do they understand for the most part? Or are you seeing they're still just like, one track, I just want to get it done. I just want to utilize this tool so I don't have to learn.
It's hard to say. I can say based on when a student commits plagiarism and they come my way, 99% of the time, it's never because I really want to cheat. My goal is to cheat. It's always because they ran out of time, they needed to get it done, they didn't know what to do, and the easy out was this. I will say too, on the other end, we have some of our brightest students in AP who are so grade point minded that they're leaning heavily into AI because they're looking for the perfect paper. One of my English teachers yesterday said that I'm getting tired of reading doctoral dissertations, noting that kids are really using AI when they shouldn't be and missing the point that the most important thing is their voice, their writing, not the right answer, the best answer. And again, teachers are struggling with trying to tease out what's real, what's enhanced. It's a struggle.
I also wanted to just say thank you. This was very informative. And just comment that I personally took a singleton class in high school, and it was a science research class where one of the requirements was to write a grant. And I was 17 years old. I was awarded that grant, and it changed the course of my life. I still write grants today, 25 years later, and I don't know that I would have done that if I had not taken that class. So thank you for all you do, and thank you to all those teachers who teach those single classes. I think they're life-changing.
I think there's no more questions. Just want to, the most important, the secret sauce in the department is the teachers. Their experiences in their classrooms, with their peers, with their affiliations to like universities and local groups is really the synergy that drives all of this forward. Rarely have we had the need like, oh, we need to find an external person to come in and tell us what to do. I think the most important thing just to be mindful of, the most precious commodity is time. If we had more time for people to work together, not just in English, but with special education, our partners as co-teachers, social studies, and the other disciplines, we can move mountains. But absent time, we are doing the best that we can with the knowledge base and motivation and heart that we have. Thank you.
Thank you. While you're closing up, I'll just say, from my own experience, my children have considered their English classes to be a safe space, which I've been very appreciative of. And in particular, when they were writing their college essays, some of those are very, very personal. So it's been wonderful. Andrew, I was just going to announce you.
Ready to rock and roll.
Take it away, Andrew.
Excellent. Good evening. I want to start our 2026-27 budget development officially tonight. And the first thing we're going to do is review our current year budget, so what we went through last year with the 2025-26 budget. And then I'll present the rollover budget, which is our, even before our first draft, our pre-first draft of the next year's budget. So looking at where we were at this time last year, we knew the key issues were going to be, or key questions, what would happen with foundation aid, right? So 2 summers ago, we had the Rockefeller Institute doing that large-scale study of foundation aid, which is the largest undesignated formula that the state uses to drive aid to school districts. We didn't know what would happen. Internally, we had declining kindergarten enrollment, which was a multi-year trend, so we knew that we would see fewer sections at the elementary level and know that this would percolate up through the grades over time. We were still facing significant inflation, which was affecting purchasing, also our internal salaries and negotiations. Prescription drug insurance costs grew every month. Every time we got a report, we were spending more on prescription drugs, largely driven by no restrictions on GLP-1 access, but not only limited to that. And finally, we had finished off the round of tax certiorari payments, refunds because of challenges with the Crossgate settlement the prior year, but we had to borrow for that, and we knew that that payment would not be excludable from the tax cap. So that would eat up some of our budget, our revenue growth and our ability to meet the budget. So this is last year's, the previous year's budget, our rollover budget, and then the final adopted budget for expenses. And I just wanted to, not going to go through all this again because we went through it and we settled on the, or we developed the final budget, but just show that between the rollover budget and the adopted budget, we reduced spending by $2.7 million, and that's really $1 million. And then our revenue budget also increased, but the biggest driver there was we had held foundation aid flat in our initial projections because there was strong uncertainty what would happen. There was discussion of ending so hold harmless. We really didn't know, and we ended up getting a fairly decent foundation aid increase that benefited us. This isn't really reflected in the state aid revenue because along with cutting contract transportation spending, we cut forecasted transportation aid, but we had a real gain there. And that $376,000 gap line, that was the amount of fund balance and reserves used in the final budget. So those changes, we had breakage and attrition and retirements. This is something that we don't include in the rollover budget. The rollover budget just says this year's staff to next year's staff. We also reduced open positions, across the district and across departments or units. We had a reduction to supply codes, which yields modest savings, but does have an impact on what our schools are able to do. As I said, we reduced contract transportation. We reduced debt service in the final projections, which was offset by reduced state aid. And finally, there was that increase in foundation aid. That's the backdrop to this year. So just want to set the context for, it's very common, not just our district, but other districts to have the gap in the rollover budget. So we hold staffing and programs constant. We just say, if we do this next year, what will it cost? But we also use known data. So we may have, in this case, some preliminary health insurance projection data. We don't have final numbers yet, but we know that it will be a significant impact. And we also look at what are historical trends for equipment, supplies, salaries, all of those different components of the budget. So this slide has our rollover budget for both expenditures or spending and revenue. So the revenue projections are significant, 5.3%. This is really driven by the increase in benefits. In our current budget, so in 25-26, health and insurance alone takes up 18% of our overall budget. If we went back in time 10 years and said that was going to be happening, it would stagger everyone. Next year or in future years, we're going to be crossing the 20% threshold. Health insurance continues to rise. It's not a Guilderland unique problem. If you watch news reports, health insurance costs are a very frequent topic of conversation or coverage. So this is an issue that is affecting public and private enterprises across the country and across the state. Other drivers, we see increases in instructional and support salaries. These are contractual, so they're obligations the district has taken on. Projected modest increases in equipment and supplies and contractual services, BOCES services. Key there is, we get aid on BOCES services, so when we shift expenditures to BOCES, we receive the majority of that money back in aid the following year. For revenue, again, we're projecting moderate increases in state aid, so leaving us with a $3.7 million gap between expenses and revenues. So what does this actually mean for us at this point? Right now, this year's budget experience looks similar to last year's budget experience. So where we are starting the process is similar to where we were last year. And again, we have those big uncertainties. We don't know what's going to happen with state aid. So this is our summary table comparing last year and this year. The gap is slightly larger, but in reality, we're looking at, we closed the $3.1 million gap last year. Again, we didn't fully close it. We budgeted fund balance and reserves. Next board meeting, we will have a much more in-depth discussion of fund balance and reserves. What drove this? I mentioned the benefits. It is notable that in the projection, the increase in benefits dollar-wise is larger than the increase in salary. My guess, and this, I feel pretty confident in this being accurate, is that this district has never encountered this before. Doesn't mean we won't encounter it in the future. Doesn't also mean that, the final budget, things may play out differently, but just that having benefit increases on this scale is tremendously impactful. We don't have our final tax cap or preliminary tax cap developed yet because with the capital project cash flow projections needed, we're delayed with our financial advisor, but we will have that in the next few weeks and be able to share that at the next board meeting. And again, we're projecting a modest increase in state aid. Our next step, we anticipate the governor releasing her budget next week. We'll be looking carefully at that to see not just are there obligations being added to school districts, are there new mandates, but also what is her proposal for state aid. Internally, we'll be releasing our thought exchange shortly to get feedback from the public on budget priorities. At the next board meeting, I'll share the tax cap, the vehicle purchase proposition, and as I mentioned, we'll talk about fund balance and reserves, our strategy and our history. This is all leading up to less than 2 months from now when Dan and I will be sharing the draft budget for 26-27. From that draft budget, we will be working with the board, with the public, on refining it, getting information. Hopefully, we might have a final state budget before we have to adopt a budget. That one I would not, if I was making confident projections on other things, that one I'm not making a confident projection on, but it would be great. And then May 19th will be our budget vote. Any questions or comments on the rollover budget or the framework to beginning this year's budget process?
I just for,
Yeah.
people's, I don't know, like, I'm just
So
trying to.
It's the reverse of last year. So last year, we saw modest increases in medical insurance
Right,
and huge increases in prescription drug insurance.
yeah,
This year, we don't have our prescription drug numbers yet, but the utilization, it's not going to be a significant increase. Medical, on the other hand, will be
Oh, okay.
high teens likely,
wow,
which is
okay.
significant.
Do you think that is reflective of the federal situation?
It's reflective of our utilization because we're self-insured. So we're part of a consortium, we pool our medical, we're fully self-insured for prescription drug. And so across the pool, utilization has been growing significantly. Meredith?
Do we, from a percentage standpoint, I know that insurance is able to be increased based on age groups. If we had a large portion of our staff base retire in a given year, would that make a difference in our consortium's costs? If we hired in,
From
you
what
know.
I understand, and again, from what I understand about how our process works is they look at our 5-year utilization
Okay.
in setting the rates. They don't look at
Would make no difference
demographics.
whatsoever.
So, well, it would show up maybe, if that happens over the next 5 years, 10 years from now, we may be seeing
Got it.
impacts from that. Just like the hope with the growth in GLP-1 usage is that we will see decreased medical costs down the line if we have long-term employees stay with us, and those drugs are effective at preventing a lot of significant and often expensive medical needs that may yield some savings or reduces the growth in those categories.
No other questions?
Just GLP-1s will probably continue to get cheaper as well, right? I mean, they're being mass produced now, the patent is up, so, you know, alternatives have flooded the market. So will that make a difference in the coming years? Right, it's.
That I can't, I mean, I can say right now, I look closely at our utilization. Our utilization grew, it actually did not, the last 2 months of the last fiscal year or last school year, which is the 2 months before we put in relatively modest restrictions, we did not see an increase in utilization, which I thought might happen because we were very clear in communicating that these are coming because we were implementing all these changes. We were communicating to our members. So potentially our districts, our employees and health and other insured members' demand for those has been satisfied and plateaued. But again, things also can change.
Okay. Thank you.
But you're saying this year's budget isn't really about, it's not prescription drugs as much
Right.
as
It's about
overall
it's
utilization.
about the medical costs.
Thank you, Andrew. Okay, we'll move on to the consent items. Can I get a motion to approve the consent items A through D? Meredith, second Katie. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. And then we will move on to Rachel.
Good evening. I have 2 items for you this evening. First, an accolade. I'm pleased to recognize an outstanding professional achievement by one of our own high school teachers. Physical education teacher and coach Allison Relier has been named the New York State Association for Health, Physical Education, Recreation, and Dance Professional of the Year. This prestigious award honors educators who demonstrate exceptional leadership, service, and long-term contributions to health and physical education, along with a sustained commitment to the state professional organization. Allison has served the Guilderland Central School District for more than 2 decades and is widely respected by her peers and colleagues for her leadership, particularly in unified sports, where she builds community, celebrates inclusion, and creates meaningful opportunities for all students. She's driven by a constant desire to grow and improve, and her impact extends far beyond the gymnasium. We are incredibly proud of Allison and feel fortunate to have her as part of our school community. And if you see Allison, please give her a big congratulations.
Yeah, that's great.
And second, I have a textbook that was submitted for your review 2 meetings ago and is now submitted for approval. It is the graphic novel adaptation of Refugee by Alan Gratz, illustrations in the graphic novel by Sid Finney, and it's for use in grades 7 and up, mostly grades 7 and 8, and for ELA and social studies.
Okay, so we vote, right? So can I get a motion to approve the book? Tara, second. Kelly, any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous?
Thank you.
Back to you, Andrew.
Thank you very much. I have several items for your consideration tonight. The first is a general fund transfer.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve? I thought there was more, sorry. Can I get a motion to approve the general funds transfer? Kim, second. Rebecca, any questions or comments? All those in favor? Okay, unanimous.
Thank you. My next item is appointing two members to the audit committee. We had 2 seats open. I want to first recognize Gianfranco Santaniello, who is a longtime member of the committee, who recently resigned. We also had Skylar Ryan, who was not with the committee as long, but provided fantastic service. We also donated a piano to the district. They both resigned, so the audit committee interviewed a number of outstanding candidates, but voted to recommend Gretchen Gunther Collins and Christopher Meislin.
Okay, thank you. So can I get a motion to appoint the 2 members to the audit committee? Peter, second. Meredith, any questions or comments? All those in favor? Unanimous?
Thank you. My next item is a shared service agreement with Scotia Glenville Central School District for the transportation of students.
Okay, can I get a motion to accept the service agreements? Katie, second. Tara, any questions or comments? All those in favor? Unanimous?
Thank you. My next item are service agreements for speech, language, adaptive technology, and other supports for our students.
Okay, can I get a motion? Nina, second. Kelly, any questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor? Unanimous?
Thank you. My next item is an emergency transportation contract with Raja Group LLC.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve the emergency contract? Rebecca, second. Katie, any questions or comments? All those in favor? Passes 9-0.
Thank you. My next item is the awardment of a contract to RLS Demographics for a demographic enrollment projection study.
Okay. Can I get a motion to accept? Let's see, Nina, second. Kelly, any questions or comments?
I have a question.
Yep.
Is that something we do every year? I haven't seen this on
We
the
have-
agenda before.
We have not done this for 10 years. I do internal projections each year, but we are required to have an outside consultant do enrollment projections as part of our submission of a capital project. Because it's been more than 10 years since we had someone do them, we don't have current projections. So this is a requirement for the capital project submission, because we're doing an addition at the high school. So SED needs that in order for us to receive building aid. But this is also, as I've talked about declining enrollment a lot over the last few years, I am not actually a demographer. I'm very excited about the opportunity of having a demographer look at not just the birth data that I look at, but do a more systematic overview of our district's birth and death data and real estate, development, sales, all of the more complex factors to help us understand what scenarios may come over the next 10 years, because if we do see these actual enrollment declines, that'll impact future budgets and future operational years. Part of this RFP was a public presentation, so Bob, who's the guy doing our study, I will come to a board meeting at a date to be determined later this school year to share his projections.
That's great, but useful.
Great. All those in favor? Unanimous?
Thank you. My last item is a donation from Beth Lacey, who made a monetary donation to our K-9 program.
Wonderful. Can I get a motion to accept? Nina, second Kelly. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you for the donation. Okay, on to me, Board President action. So we are going to vote on these tonight, I believe. Okay, so 1 through 10. We received these last time or the time before, I can't remember, but, so can I get a motion to approve these, first of all? Peter, the fruits of our labor, Peter, very good, okay. Second, Rebecca, any questions or comments on any of them? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Passes 9-0, thank you. Board committee reports? Can we start with audit?
We met today for 3.5 minutes. We had interviews last week. We're really grateful for the community outreach. We had excellent candidates. And we don't have any pending meetings.
Okay, thank you. Business practices?
We're meeting on January 30th.
Okay, thank you. Communications?
We met today. We went over the results of the climate and culture survey, and I'd like to thank the teachers, families, and students that participated. The information will be shared out coming up. And then we also reviewed the questions that will be coming out on the thought exchange for the budget. We are, as we've heard from Andrew, officially in the budget season, so there'll be a thought exchange that will be coming out, and we are looking again for input from the community on priorities as we are building the budget and information. So please, if the community could again participate in that, we would welcome the feedback, and we will meet again on February 10th.
Great, thank you. DEI, we meet
Tomorrow.
tomorrow, yeah. Okay,
Policy.
policy,
Policy Committee will plan a meeting for February.
okay. Thank you. Are there any other public comments?
No.
Okay, let me just check my email real quick. Nope. Okay. Now we are going to the Wild West, but I would like to actually go back to the student report out because though our students were not able to be here, they did send them to me. So first, quarter 2 ends next Friday, January 23rd. The end of the second quarter marks the end of the semester as well, meaning we are halfway through the year. Many people's schedules change at this point in the year as some classes are only one semester long. Students should check their schedules to make sure they are aware of any classes that might be changing for next semester. And students should also be checking their gradebook on eSchool data to make sure they have submitted all of their work. Also next week is January Regents Week. Students who signed up earlier in the year to take a January Regents exam will be taking their exam next week. Mr. Piscatelli sent out the exam schedule via Student Square last week, and the schedule is as follows. January 20th, morning ELA, afternoon Life Sciences Biology, Living Environment and Chemistry. The 21st is Geometry, U.S. History and Government, and Algebra 1 and Physics. January 22nd is Global History and Algebra 2. January 23rd is Earth and Space Science, Students who are not taking the exam will follow a normal class schedule on Tuesday and Wednesday. Thursday and Friday have been shortened to half days. Blocks will be 48 minutes and dismissal will be at 11:01. There will be an extracurricular performing ensembles concert tomorrow night. I will be there at 7 p.m. in the high school auditorium. The concert will feature the chamber choir, chamber strings, stage band, and the jazz ensemble. All are welcome. Finally, the annual Pops concert will be held on Saturday, February 7th, and this year's theme is Pops Goes to the Movies. So that should be a lot of fun, and I hope folks will attend. Thank you, Parth and Ryan, for those updates. And now we return to the Wild West. Is there any board ideas, sharing, issues, etc.? I always have some, but I try to go last. Anything? Go ahead. Okay. All right. Thank you to Dr. Fincel for his presentation. And in general, I would say that it's very helpful to us as a board to continue to learn about what is going on from the perspective of the teachers. So today, even though I graduated in '96 and I've been a parent for a while here, I did learn something this evening. And so I wonder how the board would feel, and I have already discussed it with Katie and Dan, about affording the GTA and teachers an opportunity soon to come out and perhaps let us know about some of the highlights of the past year, especially as we go into budget season. I was thinking it might be good to just sort of get a refresher, or here's some things we may not know about. So I feel pretty strongly that I'd like to do that. Are there any other, Katie, do you have anything you want to say, first of all?
No, I think it would be great to hear from them. I know that our teachers in the GTA are doing a lot of social justice work and work for the community, and it would be nice to give them an opportunity to also share out the work they're doing to support the community outside of the school.
Right. And it would be great for our listeners at home also, I think. Rachel, any thoughts on this? I'm trying to read your face.
No, I mean, we have periodic program reports that
Right.
highlight work of our departments and our teachers, but we can.
I was thinking more of something more holistic or highlights that kind of go across the board. But, the idea is pretty abstract at this point. So anybody opposed or have concerns or not on board? Go ahead, Kim.
Nina was scribing hers first.
Oh, sorry, I missed it.
I talked a lot. You can go ahead.
Oh, I love God. No, the only question I have, it's not a concern, is what would this look like? Like, would we be taking teachers that teach a specific grade or from a specific school and highlighting at a certain meeting, or?
So, again, abstract, just an idea. But I was thinking I would reach out to GTA and sort of have them come back to us with an idea of what they propose. I would like to learn about other schools, to be honest with you. I don't have a lot of contact with Linwood or GES, and so I was thinking something holistic, like an overview, highlights across the board, but again, open to ideas, feedback. Go ahead, Peter. I'm trying to read your face too.
My face says this is a very large topic, and,
It is.
and I'm glad Kim asked, like, what does it look like? Because that's where I'm at right now.
Well, we've never
We
done
want to
it,
hear, right,
So-
we've never done this, right? So
Right.
the idea that I'm hearing is we need a more comprehensive overview from the GTA. Is that accurate?
Right. So we've had overviews, right, from the budgetary standpoint. But I'm thinking something more like this with highlights for the year. New things that we've started doing that we may not know about, or that things that we initiated, and we can get a report on how they've gone so far. Even the yonder pouches to some extent, or how the cell phone policy has impacted the classroom experience. Things like that. But again, I would leave it to Emily Minu to talk about it with folks and then get back to us. She may not like the idea, the teachers may not like the idea, but I would really like to offer that.
I don't know if this is what you're referring to, but
Go ahead.
just knowing of what I know about other districts and how they're moving towards the pathways, and I don't want to jump the gun here on like with the conversation for goal setting, but like for me, I think restructuring how we do some of our curricular catalog might be helpful in following those new, like those new themes that I know specifically like South Colony I'm familiar with because I teach there. They do have like a pathways set up in their curriculum a little bit. So what I'm hearing from what could be a benefit from that when you say highlights, I think also for me, what I found the most interesting of the presentation today was the electives and the way of kind of finding ways to tap into the interests of our kids. So by finding different courses or electives that students are taking as we are going to be streamlining those pathways and figuring out how we're going to be restructuring or following suit with the Portrait of a Graduate, the GTA or teachers or, you know, faculty might be able to weigh in on some of the different types of electives that students are gravitating towards that can help structure those themes. I don't know if that's something that you're referring to, but that's kind of how I'm thinking that as we move in that direction, what do we want that to look like? So kind of collecting different ideas from that.
I understand what you're saying, and I think that that's a as teachers are going along and they're working with Rachel, and then that information is presented to us. But more, I think it was just more to give the teachers an opportunity, like an example, not to, but sometimes they, you know, they held events to get books into families' homes from, you know, the teachers held an event and students receive free books, you know, all they could come, and different things that they're doing that way. So for more of a like an overview perspective that way of the work that the teacher's doing and some of the GTA, but what you're saying is more like our goal setting and a deeper conversation and work as they're working on graduation requirements. I would assume that was something that would more come from Rachel or different department heads, but just more to give them an opportunity. It's just more of a shared opportunity to welcome them to, more than necessarily answering to us about the specific curriculum, because that's done.
Is this, are you, and again, I know that you're gonna give it to the GTA and ask them, but is this gonna be similar to like what the teacher reps do at the PTA meetings, where they go over like what the teachers are doing and the different programs?
That's probably
and
a good way to
it,
describe
it,
it.
it
Yes.
sounds
It is.
like
Yes. That's-
PTA 2.0, where they're gonna just come and actually.
That would be a better way
I
to
got a
Well,
picture
because
now.
last
Yeah,
night, I mean,
yeah.
I can give an example, and I hope she does, I don't think she's gonna get mad, she's not gonna, sorry, Lisa. No, last night at the Farnsworth meeting, Lisa Ball was talking about connections, that the students created a new club where it's making connections with students who maybe don't have other, have close connections with students, but that's the type of stuff that they'll go over, so I'm kind of picturing that, but just presented to all of
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, that makes
Okay.
sense.
That's, thank you.
a
I
better
finally got a
description,
visual.
yeah.
Thank you.
That's what I'm,
Yep.
yeah, okay.
Great. Okay, that's all I really had to say. Anybody else? Okay, thank you, everyone, and thank you to our Tech Valley student that came out.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.
Have a good night. Oh,
to,
wait, I'm
uh,
sorry, my bad. Can I get a motion to end the meeting, Kelly? Second, Ina,
Look at Peter, he's turning red.
or we'll be here forever, okay? All those in favor? 9-0. My bad.